So how many calories is too low? Is it 1800? How about 1600? At what point are you at a high risk of losing muscle, slowing down your metabolism, getting sick all the time, and regaining weight? Because the number one reason why people drop off is because their routine becomes unsustainable, and they usually don't realize it until it's too late. Also, we're all different, so how do you know what calories are too low for you? And to answer that, in this video, I'm gonna go over 6 signs that your calorie intake could be too low. This is based on my 10 years of coaching experience and the mistakes I see people make. And if you recognize 4 or more of these signs, it might be time to reconsider your current plan and start making adjustments. Now diving into it, the first sign is major food obsession. I'm not just talking about getting hungry and having cravings. I'm referring to what psychologists call food preoccupation. These are excessive and constant thoughts about food. One of the most well-documented cases of this was during the Minnesota starvation experiment, where researchers took 36 healthy men and put them on 15 to 1600 calories per day for 6 months. As time went by, they couldn't stop fantasizing about food. They started reading cookbooks for entertainment. They would watch other people eat and talk about food all the time. And I see the same pattern today in people who've been cutting on very aggressive calories for too long. They become obsessed with food, always one step away from binging and blowing through their calorie intake. Food starts taking over their entire mental bandwidth. It's like walking on a tightrope. And this is also a point where a lot of people will fall off and call it a lack of discipline, when the real issue was that the intake was not sustainable to begin with. Which brings me to the next point. The second sign is that your physical hunger never goes away, when you never seem satisfied. Even after a large meal, you're still hungry for more. And look, some hunger when losing body fat is completely normal and to be expected. As long as you eat healthy unprocessed food, get enough protein, eat your veggies, hit the like button, and drink plenty of water, it's manageable. But if you're doing all of that, and you still feel physically hungry all the time, that's usually a sign that calories have been pushed too low. And what usually happens is that people reach a breaking point and end up snacking away their calorie deficit. Even if the goal is 1600 calories per day, the realistic intake ends up being close to 2300 calories. So you feel like you're always restricting yourself, but because of those snacks and slip-ups, you're not seeing progress. And this situation generates a lot of diet fatigue, plus the disappointment that comes with failing to stay disciplined. And when it comes to getting lean, we all have a sweet spot calorie intake, one that's not too high and not too low. It's just the right balance of effectiveness and sustainability. And if you want results long term, you need to find what that number is for you. And by the way, if you'd like me to coach you through the entire process, check out the coaching link in the description below. Now, the third sign of a very low calorie intake are major hormonal changes. And this hits on multiple different levels. One of the most noticeable is decreased libido. I experienced it the first time when I went below 8% body fat. I had zero desire to be intimate. Eventually, when I had my testosterone levels tested, they were below the minimum of the reference range, and my free testosterone was at a level of a 9-year-old. At the time, I was consuming 1700 calories a day while doing 10K steps and training 5 days in the gym. My stress levels were consistently elevated, and I always felt restless. I remember feeling very tired, but at the same time, I couldn't get good sleep. Also, I was getting sick more often, and I felt cold all the time, even though it was summer. That experience is why now I don't recommend going to extreme low levels of body fat. It took me over 6 months outside of a calorie deficit to recover my testosterone and feel normal again. It's just not worth it. 10 to 15% body fat is already lean enough, and there's no reason to go lower unless you're a bodybuilder. Now, sign number 4 is not being able to enter flow state and focus at work. You might notice that a task at work that normally takes you 2 hours now takes 3 to 4 hours to complete. And this is different from general low motivation. It's feeling mentally scattered, having to reread emails, forgetting important things, not being as creative, and finding yourself procrastinating more than usual. The reality is, a calorie deficit should not make you worse at your job. Actually, in many cases, if you reduce food intake a bit and you do some intermittent fasting, it can boost focus. But if you cut calories too low and it starts affecting your productivity where nothing's getting done and you're just getting very stressed, it's just a matter of time until you give up the cut altogether. Which brings me to sign number 5, and that is compromised emotional regulation. You might suddenly snap at a friend or start arguments out of nowhere. Every little thing becomes a big deal. You don't have patience with your family, and you just feel agitated and irritable all the time. I found that a lot of guys will try to ignore this, but losing body fat shouldn't put you in a place where you have to choose between a lean physique and meaningful relationships. You're doing this to improve yourself and to become better. But if you do it wrong, it can bring out the worst version of you. And you have to be able to recognize that sooner rather than later. Now, sign number 6 is experiencing measurable losses of performance in the gym. I'm talking about when you see consistent losses of strength and a lack of progression in your training, when workouts stop being productive. You feel flat, you don't get pumps anymore, you're barely recovering between the sessions, the weight that you used to warm up with now feels too heavy. Now, don't get me wrong, some strength plateaus are normal if you've been dieting for a long time and you're close to 10 to 12% body fat. I know I typically lose about 10 to 15% of my strength on the bench press and the squat when I'm at 10% body fat versus being at 15% body fat. But if you're not an advanced lifter and you're well above 15% body fat, you shouldn't be losing strength. Actually, when I work with beginner and intermediate lifters, they almost always improve their performance as they lose body fat all the way to their goal. This ensures they're holding on to all their muscle and even gaining some. Every pound of muscle you gain is one less pound of fat you need to lose. And if you cut calories too low, you can stop growing muscle altogether and you can even lose muscle. That's how over time guys end up skinny fat with a slower metabolism. So if you've identified 4 or more of the signs from this video and you've been dieting for 5 to 6 months or longer, I suggest looking into 2 options. The first one is increasing your calories and your daily step count instead of pushing food lower and lower. This would allow you to keep seeing progress without having to starve yourself. The second option is to do a calorie maintenance period of 1 to 2 months. This will dissipate some of the diet fatigue and, more importantly, teach you how to keep your results, which is something most people never learn and just keep yo-yoing up and down every year. Either one of these 2 options will reverse a lot of those symptoms and make things more manageable. Yeah, if you do a bit of maintenance, it will take you longer to reach your goal, but there's no competition for who will build a healthy lifestyle faster. Consistency is way more important than intensity. Long term, you won't even remember if it took you 7 or 10 months to reach your goal. And this journey isn't about seeing how long you can suffer on very low calories. It's about losing fat sustainably and consistently and building a lifestyle that will keep you lean and healthy long term. If you'd like to work with me to help you achieve your goal, check out the coaching link in the description below. I'll leave another very important video here for you at the end, so check out that video and I'll see you right there.